Okay, the print-on-demand news has been so insane that I had to do an early update video. ChatGPT can now create the exact image that you want by copying reference images. Zazzle, RedBubble's major competitor, is facing a huge copyright lawsuit for hundreds of millions of dollars that could shut the whole website down. Printful has released a super trendy new product which probably has Printify very scared. Oh, and there has been a huge update to the major copyright lawsuit that's been filed against Midjourney by a group of artists, and this update is very controversial. Seriously, this news has been insane, and if you have missed it, don't worry, because I have rounded up all of the big news stories so that you don't have to. So then, let's get started by discussing how Zazzle is currently losing the copyright lawsuit against them for hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes, so this is honestly a really wild story. So if you've never heard of Zazzle, it's a big print-on-demand marketplace that you can sell your images on, similar to RedBubble, and they are one of their biggest competitors. For reference, Zazzle's yearly revenue is estimated to be between $100 million to $500 million, whereas RedBubble's is estimated to have been about $367 million. So they are big competitors. Although, perhaps they soon won't be if Zazzle is forced to close their doors due to this lawsuit. Seriously, it is big and no one is talking about it. So here is one of the most popular font typefaces that's used in print-on-demand products because it's honestly really beautiful and trendy. It's called Blooming Elegant and it was designed by artist Nikki Latz. I'm sorry if I cannot pronounce her name correctly. Well, last year she sued Zazzle for stealing it. It's pretty crazy, honestly, but her lawsuit stated that one of Zazzle's senior engineers pretended to be an individual user, and they bought an individual single user license for the font from her, and then they took the font files they downloaded and uploaded them into their product designer tool without her permission, which, by the way, they allegedly only paid about $17 for. Nikki stated in her lawsuit that she only found out once a user from Zazzle contacted her years later asking for help with the fonts. Outraged, she then contacted Zazzle and immediately demanded that they stop using the fonts and hand over reports of how much money that they've made from the products that used it. And in response, not only did Zazzle refuse to hand over the information, but they kept using them for another 2 years. And well, if this is true, it seems that Zazzle made a lot of money from it. The lawsuit states that they were the most popular fonts on the website, used by some of the best-selling products on there. And so, therefore, they are seeking that Nikki be repaid for hundreds of millions of dollars in unlawful profit Zazzle made from the products, as well as hundreds of millions of dollars from lost money from Zazzle not paying for licensing rights for its users. Her lawyer then went and said, "This is a case of brazen fraud committed by a widely recognized multi-billion-dollar brand against the very kind of creative talent Zazzle claims to support." Nikki then submitted a motion that asked the judge for a partial summary judgment, which would have the case immediately settled in her favor, without having to go to trial. So that was that, until there was a major update recently. And that is this. The judge denied the motion and ruled in favor of Zazzle, saying that they have the right to defend themselves at a trial, despite the judge also seemingly acknowledging that it's looking pretty bad for Zazzle. So, as I said, this is a pretty wild story, isn't it? I guess the question now is it true? And well, I can't tell you who's telling the truth. I guess we will find out at the trial. So keep this in mind then, whenever somebody tells you that the print-on-demand industry is boring. Clearly, we have plenty of drama going on. So who do you think will win this lawsuit? Let me know in the comments. So let's now talk about Printful's trendy new product that might have Printify scared. And it's this, their brand new wall calendar for 2024. Now, Sarah, I can imagine some of you saying, didn't you just show us in the latest news update that Printify also has their own wall calendars for sale, so why would they care? And yes, it is true that I did show that, and actually since then, they added in a second one. But as you can see, both of these only let you customize the top half of the calendar, whereas the Printful version lets you customize both halves of it to create a beautiful design, which I think is a huge clap back. Because as you can see, print-on-demand wall calendars on Etsy in this particular style not only sell for higher prices of over $30, but they're also popular. 5 copies of this wall calendar here have sold just in the last 24 hours. So it'll be interesting to see if Printify comes back with anything themselves. And by the way, speaking of print-on-demand companies, if you would like to learn my favorite print-on-demand companies, apps, and products to sell, you should be sure to download a copy of my free ebook, The 6 Steps That 6-Figure Online Stores Follow to Make Over $10,000 a Month. You will find a link to download my free ebook in the video description below. But anyway, back to the video. Okay then, let's now discuss a controversial update to the copyright lawsuit that a group of famous artists have brought against Midjourney. Yes, so if you remember, earlier this year there was a major copyright lawsuit filed against Midjourney by a group of artists alleging that they illegally downloaded their images and that they were illegally using their names as prompts and that they were illegally using their images to train AI. Well, there has been a huge ruling. The judge has dismissed most of the lawsuit and ruled mostly in favor of Midjourney. However, the case is not over yet. One part of the lawsuit against Midjourney is allowed to proceed, and that is the artist's claims that their images were illegally downloaded and stored in Stable Diffusion, which, by the way, is the name of the image generating model that Midjourney uses to generate images. Well, controversially, the judge has allowed the artist to proceed with a specific claim against Stable Diffusion, as Sarah Anderson, one of the artists included in the lawsuit, did provide some evidence, noting that her images were included on a website database called Have I Been Trained? This is a website that lets you type in an artist's name and see if any of their images have been scraped and included in a very popular AI image training collection from an organization called Leon, which I'm probably mispronouncing. If you've never heard of them, Leon is a German non-profit educational organization, and they effectively collect data throughout the internet and then they let AI organizations use this data to train their programs, such as Stable Diffusion. And currently, it is legal for them to do so under fair use laws. Especially since Leon themselves do not download or host any images, their collection of images is instead just links to images which are freely available online. That is why when one photographer submitted a copyright claim against them for including their image in their dataset, Leon in return sent them a bill for 979 euros for filing an unjustified copyright complaint against them. And so then Midjourney and Stable Diffusion in their response clapped back. They said that while their model was trained on Leon's data, they themselves have not downloaded and saved images and they do not use them during the image generating process, which is actually something that a lot of people in my YouTube comments will often accuse Midjourney of doing whenever they come up in a video. The judge seemed to agree with them and he seemed to believe that they were probably telling the truth, stating he knew Stable Diffusion had argued that it would be impossible for them to be storing and compressing billions of images in their system. And so he said, while he's happy to let the lawsuit proceed, to do so the artists are going to have to amend it to provide actual proof that Midjourney and Stable Diffusion are storing their images in their system, which currently their lawsuit does not prove. He also said in addition to that, that they will have to show images that Midjourney has generated that look similar enough to theirs to constitute copyright, which honestly, I think is going to be pretty hard for them to do, because the artists and their lawyers in this case have already conceded that none of the Stable Diffusion output images provided in response to a particular text prompt is likely to be a close match for any specific image in the training data. So in other words, it seems that the artists and their lawyers haven't yet found a single image generated by Midjourney that would constitute copyright infringement. So for that reason alone, I suspect that Midjourney is probably going to win this lawsuit. But remember, I'm not a lawyer, and this is a pretty controversial topic, so let me know who you think should win this lawsuit in the comment section below. But speaking of Midjourney, it reminds me of today's sponsor, me. Yes, I am sponsoring my own video to let you know that if you would like to learn how I use free images from AI art apps like Midjourney and also Canva to create high-converting, high-profit print-on-demand products online, then you should be sure to check out my beginner-friendly video course, the Ecom Clubhouse, which shows you how I do this. To see if my course is right for you, I'll have a link to it in the video description. But for now, back to the video. And let me show you how ChatGPT can now create the exact designs you want by copying other images for reference. Yes, this is absolutely amazing technology, so let me show you. Inside of ChatGPT 4, make sure that you have the beta features turned on. Then just come and choose an image that you want to upload as a reference and upload it to ChatGPT. And then you tell ChatGPT what sort of image you want it to create while using this image as a reference. It will now generate a new image for you by combining what you want together with this picture. And the reason why I'm so excited for this is that it's going to make creating images and vectors in the exact style and pose that you want so much easier. And something that I'm just not seeing people talk enough about is that you can combine different images together now to get exactly what you want. So here I uploaded 2 different photos of 2 different dogs, and then I asked ChatGPT to please use the dog's pose in the first image, but to make it look like the dog from the second photo. And, well, that is exactly what ChatGPT did for me. As I said, this is pretty insane. But remember that as insane as this is, it's still in beta, so it can definitely be glitchy. So do keep that in mind while you use it. So then, what do you think of all this latest news? Let me know in the comments. And to catch up on my previous news update, I'll be sure to have a link to it here on screen. So I'll see you in the next video.